Shneyer. I'm the founder and director of Heartbeat, which is a social enterprise that unites Israeli and Palestinian youth musicians to build critical understanding, to explore music's power as a tool for social change, and amplifies their voices to influence the world around them. I'm a musician, and I grew up here in Washington, D.C., in a family of activists and musicians, and from the time I was very young, was dreaming of a way to use music as a tool to heal hatred in the world. When I was a student at Georgetown University, I got very involved in Jewish-Arab dialogue work, and found a real passion and a real opportunity in using music in that work, and later went on to pursue work with a few organizations in Israel and Palestine, doing dialogue work between Israeli and Palestinian youth. And in 2007, I received a Fulbright MTVU fellowship to create Heartbeat, at that time to create one ensemble of 12 Israeli and Palestinian youth musicians from East and West Jerusalem. And we came together over the course of a year, meeting once a week, to engage in a critical dialogue about their realities, to build understanding, to really engage in critical thinking, and to also write music and explore music's power as a tool for communication. At the end of the year, we put on a huge concert and felt we couldn't stop there. So my 9-month project has become now an 8-year project. I'm sure it will go on for much longer. Today, Heartbeat is a community of over 100 musicians who've been part of the program. We have high school groups meeting weekly in Jerusalem and in Haifa, which are led by trained dialogue facilitators, Israeli and Palestinian dialogue facilitators who are also skilled musicians. Each ensemble brings together an evenly balanced group of Jewish and Arab, Israeli and Palestinian youth, high school students, who are also trained musicians, and they continue to engage in this process of integrated dialogue and music co-creation. They go on field trips to witness realities up close and in person and experience them from multiple viewpoints. And when the bands are ready, they go out into their communities and perform and give workshops and spread their music and messages. And to date, we've performed for over 15,000 people, and their music videos have reached hundreds of thousands of people, and we're just getting started. We also have a graduate program, so when musicians finish our program, they're invited to stay involved as part of our graduate program. There's been a number of projects that really stood out as really meaningful and exciting projects for us. Twice we created hip-operas with our musicians from Israel and Palestine, as well as dancers and rappers from Germany, and video artists who are Sudanese refugees living in Israel. And together we created these hip-operas. One of them was about the struggles, the realities that refugees face. Our musicians come with many different musical backgrounds and experience levels, and often that dialogue between the genres is as rich and intense as dialogue about politics. So we have musicians who come from studying years of jazz or classical music, Western classical music. Others who studied Eastern Arabic classical music. Some who have not had the financial resources to take music lessons or study music formally, so they rap or they sing or they play the folk music of their community. Other people who play heavy metal and play rock and roll and reggae, and I think something very beautiful happens when the groups, each group finds a way to mix all these styles together and give voice to each equally. And I think what comes out of it is definitely a Heartbeat style, where it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and something very beautiful. At the performances, audience members will come up to us afterwards and share just really warm feedback. You've changed the way I look at things. You've opened my eyes to these new realities, this new truth that I really was not aware of. We've had a Palestinian come up to us and say, I've never heard an Israeli talk about ending the occupation. I've never heard of an Israeli truly talking about what peace means. Just from hearing you today, I have so much more hope. And similarly, we've had, Israelis or Jewish audience members who have been more hardline, who, for the first time, they meet a Palestinian that they see as a partner. And then, of course, there are quite a few loud voices that don't agree with what we're doing and take offense to the activities, to the concerts. A few years back, we started getting very vocal criticism from members of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, saying that people should boycott our concerts and not invite us because, according to them, Heartbeat is a normalization organization that's normalizing the occupation, that's whitewashing the truth of what's happening and painting the situation as a conflict between two equals, when, as they see it, this is oppressor oppressing an oppressed, a victim and a victimizer. And I think these criticisms, they rocked us. They shook us, because that's not how we see it, of course. And our musicians, especially the Palestinian musicians in the group, were deeply upset by this, and it pushed us all. Like, we really took this as an opportunity to go deeper into dialogue.
To disagree, we need to sit and talk. That's how we'll get progress. Because it's very easy to, each one will sit just with like-minded people, and that's it. We will just get more and more extreme. We will just feel more and more right.
We see ourselves fundamentally as an educational institution, and feel that it's immoral for the staff to impose any viewpoint, to dictate or to bank, or to deposit ideas into our students' minds. And we prefer to make Heartbeat a space for critical dialogue, for raising critical consciousness, where the musicians, they bring the content, they bring the answers, they bring the knowledge. Because of those criticisms, especially our touring bands have made it very clear on stage that they, as individual members of Heartbeat, are going to say whatever they believe and represent the truth as they see it. So they get on stage and they talk about the occupation, they talk about the corruption in politics, they talk about the terrible suffering of the people in Gaza, they talk about inequality within Israeli society, where Arab citizens, as they see, are treated as second-class citizens. So we actually had one performance where there was a small protest planned outside the concert, where Students for Justice in Palestine, a handful of them, made a protest against our concert. Many of our musicians tried to join the protest to say, we're in Heartbeat and we're also against the occupation. We're against the normalization of the occupation and we're in Heartbeat. And that really confused the protesters. On stage, the Heartbeat musicians made their opinions very clear. And some of the hosts, who are from some pro-Israel and Jewish groups, were really off-put by the critical nature of the performances. And there's actually been a number of cases where Jewish audience members have felt that the concert has unfairly portrayed Israel as an oppressor. And hearing those criticisms, our musicians again reflect and ask, what are we doing here? Because our purpose is not to push people away. Our hope is that we can create a third space, another way of talking about this conflict, where it's not about us versus them, but rather where we can all understand that we're all suffering and that we need to work together to move out of this situation. There's a few tools that we've come to understand inside music, which I'd say as musicians we use to reach the zone, like this magical place of unity as a band. And those three tools are the same, really, that we need to create healthy communities and healthy societies. It really comes down to respect, to listening, and to responsibility. Living in Jerusalem for 6 years, was this massive infusion of the sounds of the Middle East. I think certainly, expanding my mind of being able to understand, there's not only 12 notes. There can be 22 or 24 or even more notes that we can choose from